and today I'm going to be talking about debugging JavaScript with Chrome DevTools. How many of you know what Chrome DevTools is? Yeah. How many of you feel comfortable with Chrome DevTools? Cool. Yeah. It's really helpful for a lot of things. I've never really used it for debugging, but maybe you will after this. OK, so I'm going to talk about 3 things that you probably need to know to debug in Chrome DevTools. There's a lot more out there that you can kind of explore that I won't cover, but I'll be talking primarily about breakpoints, execution control buttons, and the call stack. So yeah, first is breakpoints. They're an effective way to debug code because you can pause your code at any point while it's being executed and investigate like the values of variables or the call stack at any time. This is what a breakpoint looks like. You guys might know it as debugger. If you stick a debugger in any line, it's the same thing as creating a breakpoint. I'll show you live examples of this later. The second thing I want to talk about was execution control buttons. And these are on the top of the side panel in sources. And they basically help you control your pace as you go through the code. And then there's the call stack. And you probably already know this is basically when the code is paused at a breakpoint, the call stack shows what function calls brought you to that breakpoint. So this is an example of, in this example, here's all the functions that brought the code to the current point in reverse chronological order. So in this example, onClick called set1 called setAll, and that's where we're currently paused. And then there's this little async checkbox here on the top right of the call stack. And basically, I'm just going to talk about really quickly what's going on in this example. There's a button, and when it's clicked, jQuery, which is a third-party library, triggers the onClick function, which is over here, defined over here. And then when onClick is called, a set timeout waits 500 milliseconds before it calls F. And then there's a debugger inside of F. So normally, asynchronous functions and calls to a third-party library like jQuery wouldn't be included in the call stack. But if you click the checkbox for async, they are included. So I'm just going to play this. So you can see just F is in the call stack. But if you click async and you run it again, there's multiple functions. So you can see the whole. You can trace all the functions that happened that led up to F. OK. Time for examples. Oh, wow. I'm good on time. I did this yesterday. It was like 15 minutes or like 20 minutes or something like that. So one thing I wanted to make sure you guys realize before you try and do this on your own is that I'd recommend doing debugging with DevTools and incognito, because you'd be surprised how many extra calls happen because of your Chrome extensions. If you feel like you are debugging something and you're seeing like lots of calls happening when there really shouldn't be, check them out, pull up sources, and open up where the code is being stopped, and right-click on the tab and click Reveal in Navigator. And if the file comes up in the Content Scripts tab on the left, that means that it's a Chrome extension. So if you open incognito mode, you won't have this problem unless you have your Chrome extensions enabled in incognito mode, in which case you should not do that, I guess. So yeah, oh, yeah, here it is. OK, cool. So here's my to-do app. I'm going to make it a little bigger, because I know it's probably really hard to see. Can you guys see that? Cool. All right. So this is a really simple to-do app. Basically, you can like add tasks, and you can delete tasks, check them off, whatever. So I'm going to talk about breakpoints first. And typically, you'd put this around where you suspect your code is failing. I don't exactly have any failing points right now, so we're just going to pretend that we're just going to put them in for the sake of demonstrating how to put them. So you can just create them by clicking on the line numbers in the code. And that like basically adds them in. So I created two, one on 7 and one on 16. And if I refresh the page, you'll see that the code, we stop at line 7, which is the first one. And if we look at this on the right panel where scope is, you'll see under the $ scope variable that $scope.toDo's has not been, it's not inside of this object yet. But if we go to the next line, it now is here. Here's the array with 3 to-dos. So we have that. And yeah, and if we click this again, it will finish, and you can see all the to-dos populate on the left in the actual interface. OK, now I'm going to talk about execution control buttons, which are these things. So we talked a little bit about what these do. This button helps you jump from one breakpoint to another breakpoint. So when I refresh again, this one takes me from 7 to 16, and if I have other ones, it takes me there. But what if I want to continue like seeing what happens after those two scope.toDo's and scope.addTask are assigned? I can't just create like I guess I could create breakpoints for all these different lines. The easier way to do that is just to use this, which takes you to the next function call. So addTask, then it goes to remove to do, it goes to addTask. And you can see like over on right here that after I finish adding task, the to-dos array gets longer, etc. So step over function call basically takes you to the next function call. Then there's step into, which is this like little arrow pointing at a circle. And that's kind of like if you want to dive into a function and really examine what's going on. Here's an example of that. Like, let's say, so we're at 7 now. I'm going to go to add task. And let's say I want to step into this add task function. So I clicked step into, which takes me into the add task function, because that's what line 26 did. It was calling add task with treat myself. And so I can continue to step over through the function. When I get to the end, it basically takes me out into the next line. So yeah. And what else? How much time do I have left? Anyways. OK, cool. And then there's step out, which is basically the exact opposite of step in. Like step in takes you into a function scope. Step out takes you out to the parent scope. Another cool thing that is really helpful to know, I think, is watch. If you want to, you can put any expression in here, and it helps you kind of track it as your code is being executed. So let's say I wanted to keep track of $scope.toDo's. You can just type pretty much any like JavaScript expression in here. And let's say I want to add one more, $scope.toDo's.length. So right now, the second one's not available. That's because scope.toDo's is undefined. So, but after this line is over, scope.toDo's.length is 5, is equivalent to 5 is false. Oops, sorry. I needed to step to the next line. And after, right here, the to-dos array is 3 elements in it. After this line, it has 4. After this line, it has 5. And scope.toDo's.length, 5 is true. So that's just helpful in case you're doing, you're trying to debug something and you need to keep track of certain expressions or elements. And I feel like that's pretty much it. Thanks.